Hello class, and welcome to lesson 23, where we're going to be looking at one-step equations in the real world, and we're going to be using angles as our primary example. Now let's zoom in here and do half the notes. I am going to have a smaller first half, just step 1 and whatever's above it, and a bigger second half, which is step 2 and 3. So here's our first half. Copy those down, and our second half, step 3 and 2. Okay, let's look at the whole thing. Now, like we said, today's title lesson is about one-step equations in the real world. Now, if you think back 2 sets of notes ago, we learned how to do one-step equations. Now here the only difference is the real world, and we're going to be using angles as an example. So let's jump right in and get started. When solving one-step equations with angles, step 1, we have to use the picture to identify what the variable is. Okay, so an example here, we see our right angle, angle ABC, and we know it's right. How? Yes, we know it's right because it has this little square thing in the corner, which means we know that it is a right angle. Okay, we have split this angle, this right angle, into 2 using ray D here. Okay, so we've created 2 angles, ABD and DBC. I'll outline those in red and in blue. Okay, so the step 1 asks us to use the picture to identify the variable. We are looking for the measure of angle N, this one here. It gives us DBC, which is 50 degrees. We need to find ABD, which is N degrees. Okay. Now step 2, we use what we know about measurements to create an equation for our variable. Now here's the key, guys. We've got to create an equation because we've learned how to solve equations. That was the last 2 lessons. However, do you see an equation in any of this right here? It doesn't give it to us. So we've got to use the information to create an equation of our own. So let's go ahead and do that. In this example, we know that right angles measure 90 degrees, right? Forever and ever and ever and ever until the end of time, an angle that looks like this, that has a little square in the corner, is going to be 90 degrees, no matter what. Even if it looks really funky, there could be a super duper funky one that maybe kind of, maybe they did kind of a sloppy job and it's like that. We know obviously that's not right because it's sort of tilted, but if they put that box there, we know it's 90, always. Anyway, back to the story. We know that right angles measure 90 degrees, so if we combine the 50-degree angle that it already gave us with the measure of angle N, those 2 put together should equal 90. And yes, I'm realizing now that I misspelled should. But that is an easy fix. Should. Okie doke. So the equation that we're creating is the measure of angle N plus 50 degrees equals 90 degrees. Okay, not too bad. Step 3, pretty basic. Just solve the variable by using the steps from lesson 18 through 20 notes. So we know that we need to isolate this variable. That is big. Always, always, always don't forget to isolate the variable. Right here we see that there's a plus 50 next to it. So in order to get rid of this plus 50, we use the inverse operation of minus 50. Okay, 50 minus 50 cancels itself out, but you got to do it on both sides. Why? To keep it balanced. Okay, so we do the minus 50 on the right side as well. 90 degrees minus 50 degrees gives us 40 degrees. So N should equal 40 degrees if all is correct. And now if you've noticed, we have drawn this angle again, almost identical, except this time, instead of N, we've replaced it with a 40 degrees. So 40 degrees plus 50 degrees should equal this right angle of 90 degrees. Okay, so if we plugged it back into the expression, or the equation like we always should. So you see here our expression is n plus 50 degrees equals 90 degrees, so n plus 50 equals 90. Instead of n, let's use what we discovered here, which is 40. So 40 plus 50 equals 90. And yes, 90 equals 90, because 40 plus 50 is 90. So we know that we were correct. N does equal 40 degrees. Now, this probably seems pretty basic for some, but the kicker is we need to know that the measure of a right angle is always 90 degrees. And here's some more things that we'll have to look at during class, during our classwork. The measure of a straight angle, so a straight line, this is always 180 degrees. Okay? And sometimes, like you'll see on our classwork, they might give us an angle like this, for instance. We know it's a right angle, but they might go crazy and split it up into 3. Okay, and now we're working with multi-step. Maybe they say this angle is 30, this angle is 40, and this angle is unknown. So in that case, you know that your equation here would be 30 plus 40 plus n equals 90. Now, I'm pretty sure you can solve that one, but we're going to see some problems like that. And, why leave a problem unfinished? Let's do this. 30 plus 40 is 70, so really we're doing 70 plus n equals 90. The n is not by itself. We've got to get it by itself. So we isolate the variable by doing the inverse of, plus 70. The inverse of plus 70 is minus 70 on both sides. These two cancel out. Our n is now isolated. So n equals 90 minus 70, which is 20. So n, the angle of n, should equal 20 degrees. Anyway, those are the notes for the day. We will be practicing and practicing and practicing this a lot in class. I hope that helped. Goodbye.